The spaceship's engines hummed softly as it glided through the endless stretch of stars. Alex, a young human soldier, sat in the cockpit, gripping the controls. His mission was simple: land on a distant planet, complete the assignment, and return home. But as the ship descended, a sense of unease settled over him. The planet below was covered in thick clouds, with only a few scattered flashes of light breaking through. The atmosphere looked unfamiliar, almost too still, as though the planet itself was holding its breath. As the ship broke through the clouds and neared the surface, Alex could see the alien jungle sprawling beneath him. Towering trees twisted and turned, their leaves glowing faintly with a soft blue light. The air outside felt alive with a strange energy. He swallowed hard, trying to shake the feeling that something was watching him, waiting for his arrival. The coordinates were correct, the mission was clear, but something in his gut told him this wasn't going to be an ordinary trip. The ship touched down gently on the rocky ground. Alex could hear the faint hum of the engines shutting off, replaced by the quiet sound of the jungle. He glanced out the small window, trying to take in his surroundings. The jungle was dense, with massive trees that looked like they could reach the stars. The air outside was thick with moisture, and the distant sound of something moving in the underbrush sent a shiver down his spine. The hatch of the ship opened with a hiss, and Alex stepped out cautiously, feeling the soft ground beneath his boots. He reached for his weapon, instinctively checking it, though he wasn't sure why. He was supposed to be alone on this mission, and there was no sign of life, at least. None that he could see. Still, his senses were on high alert. The stillness of the place felt unnatural, and Alex couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't truly alone. The air smelled different here, like a mixture of earth and something sweet. He looked around, trying to make sense of the strange landscape. The trees seemed to shift in the light, casting long shadows across the ground. Everything about this place felt wrong, but Alex couldn't pinpoint why. He checked his comm device, but there was no signal. He was cut off from the rest of his team, isolated on this strange planet. As he moved deeper into the jungle, his footsteps barely made a sound. The dense foliage surrounded him, and for a moment, it was as if he was the only person in the entire universe. Then, he saw something move in the distance. His heart skipped a beat. It was a figure, a woman, standing between the trees. She was tall, with silver-white skin that almost shimmered in the soft light of the jungle. Her eyes glowed a deep blue, and her long, dark hair flowed behind her like a veil of shadows. She stood still, watching him with an intensity that made Alex's breath catch in his throat. She was unlike anything he had ever seen before, and yet, there was something oddly familiar about her presence. She looked like she was waiting for him. Alex froze. He had no idea who or what she was, but everything in him told him that this moment was important. The woman tilted her head, studying him silently. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Alex's hand instinctively went to the weapon at his side, but he didn't pull it out. Something in her gaze stopped him. And then, the woman spoke. "Why do you stare at me like that? Human." Her voice was clear and almost melodic, but there was an underlying tone of challenge, as if she wasn't just asking a question but demanding an answer. Alex's mind raced. This wasn't how his mission was supposed to go. He had expected nothing but emptiness and silence, not this strange encounter with an alien. He wanted to speak, to explain, but the words caught in his throat. He had never encountered anyone like her before, and the question burned in his mind. Why was he staring at her? Was it her beauty, her otherworldly presence, or something else entirely? His gaze couldn't break from hers, as though they were both bound in some invisible connection. Before he could respond, she stepped forward, her movements smooth and deliberate, like a predator closing in on its prey. The air between them thickened with tension. Alex couldn't look away, and in that moment, he knew that his mission had just changed. This was no longer just a routine assignment. He was in the presence of something much bigger, something he couldn't fully understand. And it had all started with one question. "Why do you stare at me like that, human?" Her voice lingered in the air, echoing with a meaning that neither of them could yet grasp. The silence between them stretched, heavy and unnerving. Alex's heart raced, and his mind spun with questions, none of which he could voice. The alien princess stood just a few feet away, her piercing blue eyes never leaving his face. She was beautiful, in a way that seemed almost otherworldly. Her silver skin shimmered faintly in the dim light of the jungle, and her long hair, dark as midnight, framed her face like an ethereal veil. The air around her felt charged, as if the very atmosphere responded to her presence. Her question hung in the air, unanswered. Why was he staring? Was it because of her beauty? Or was there something deeper, something within her that pulled at him, drawing his attention like a magnet? He opened his mouth to speak, but his words faltered. His mind couldn't find the right response. There was too much to process, too much that didn't make sense. Why was she here? Was she part of the mission? Was she dangerous? She took a small step forward, the motion so fluid, so natural, that Alex couldn't help but be mesmerized. Her gaze softened slightly, but there was still an undeniable intensity to it. She wasn't afraid of him. He could feel it, her confidence, her power radiating out from her like an invisible force. And yet, despite her apparent strength, there was something fragile in her eyes, a vulnerability that made her even more intriguing. The princess's lips parted, but instead of speaking, she gestured toward the jungle behind her. "You've come from the stars, just like us," she said, her voice low, almost to herself. "But you don't understand what you're looking at, do you?" Alex blinked, taken aback. She wasn't asking a question anymore. She was stating a fact. He could feel the weight of her words, the unspoken challenge. Was she talking about the mission? About the planet? He didn't know. There were too many layers to what she was saying, each one deeper than the last. He tried to steady himself, his hand instinctively tightening around the grip of his weapon, though he still made no move to draw it. The last thing he wanted was to escalate things. The situation was already too unpredictable. But something about her was making it hard to focus, hard to think. Her presence was overwhelming. He couldn't deny that, even if it made him uncomfortable. She tilted her head slightly, her eyes scanning him with what seemed like curiosity. It was then that Alex noticed the strange markings on her skin, delicate, almost like tattoos, running along her arms and neck. They glowed faintly, pulsating with a rhythm that seemed to match the beating of his heart. "You humans are always so curious," she continued, her voice now softer, almost amused. "You think you can come to our world, observe us, and walk away unchanged. But you never realize how much you leave behind, how much you lose." Alex felt a cold chill run through him. He didn't understand what she meant. Was she talking about him? Or was she speaking of the people who had come before him? He didn't know, but the way she said it made him feel as if he were being weighed, measured in some way he couldn't comprehend. For a moment, they stood there, the jungle around them silent except for the occasional rustle of leaves in the wind. Then, without warning, the princess stepped back, her eyes still fixed on him. She seemed almost like a creature out of a dream, a being too beautiful to be real, yet standing before him with a presence he couldn't deny. "You've come here for something," she said, her voice low but steady. "But be careful, human. Not all things are what they seem, and not all of us are willing to let you leave." Alex's pulse quickened at her words, the weight of their meaning settling in his chest. What was she trying to say? Was she threatening him or warning him? He had no answers, just more questions. Before he could respond, she turned away, her long hair flowing behind her like a dark wave. She walked slowly, deliberately, toward the deeper parts of the jungle, her figure disappearing into the shadows. Alex stood frozen for a moment, watching her leave. Something inside him told him he couldn't just walk away. There was more to this encounter, more to this world, than he had ever imagined. And though his mission had started out simple, it was clear now that it was anything but. The alien princess had made that much painfully clear. He took a deep breath, then followed her into the unknown. The deeper Alex ventured into the jungle, the more disoriented he became. The path ahead seemed to shift with every step, as if the forest itself was alive, guiding him toward something or someone. Lyra's presence lingered in his mind, a mixture of mystery and undeniable pull that he couldn't shake. She had disappeared into the shadows, but he knew she was still there, somewhere ahead, waiting for him to follow. The air grew thicker as he moved forward, the once muted sounds of the jungle now replaced with an eerie silence. Even the usual hum of insects had stopped, leaving only the rustling of his boots against the soft ground. His breath felt heavier, and with each passing moment, the weight of his mission seemed less important. This wasn't about a simple assignment anymore. It was about something deeper, something he couldn't fully understand. As he walked, the dense trees gave way to an open clearing. The sky above was no longer the usual alien violet. It had turned a deep, almost unnatural blue, filled with swirling clouds. The temperature seemed to drop sharply, sending a chill through Alex's bones. In the center of the clearing stood Lyra. She was facing away from him, her posture regal, almost ethereal against the backdrop of the stormy sky. Her long, silver hair whipped around in the wind, but she didn't seem to notice. She was completely still, as if in a trance. Alex hesitated, unsure of what to do. He wanted to speak, to ask her about everything he'd seen, but the words never came. There was something about her presence that made him feel small, insignificant, as if the weight of her existence dwarfed anything he could offer. Lyra turned slowly, her eyes locking onto his with a fierceness that made his heart skip a beat. She wasn't smiling. Instead, her gaze was cold, calculating, like she was measuring him, deciding if he was worthy of something. She stepped closer, her movements graceful, but every step seemed to send a ripple of energy through the air. "You came here with questions," she said softly, her voice almost drowned out by the sound of the wind. "But you won't find the answers you seek in the stars, human. You'll find them here, with me." The way she said "with me" made his stomach twist. It wasn't an invitation. It was a command. But Alex wasn't sure if he was ready to understand what she meant. Her words were loaded with a weight he couldn't carry, yet he couldn't pull away. He felt as though his very soul was being drawn toward her, against his will. "Why do you keep running from it?" she asked suddenly, her voice sharper now, though still calm. "You feel it too, don't you? The pull between us. The reason you can't turn away." Alex took a step forward, compelled by her words, but his feet felt like they were stuck in place. What was she talking about? The pull, the connection? He wanted to protest, to deny it, but a part of him knew deep down that she was right. Since the moment they met, he had felt something change inside him. I don't understand," he managed to say, his voice barely above a whisper. Lyra's expression softened for the briefest moment, before it turned unreadable again. She took another step toward him, closing the distance between them. He could feel her warmth now, an undeniable presence that surrounded him like a fog. "You came here expecting something simple, human," she said, her tone almost pitying. "But you're not prepared for what's to come. None of you are." The weight of her words pressed down on him like an unseen hand, and for a moment, Alex felt a sense of foreboding unlike anything he had ever experienced. There was a deeper game being played here, and he had no idea what his role was in it. But as Lyra's eyes met his once again, he couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope. Despite the tension, despite the danger he could sense creeping closer with every word, he couldn't bring himself to walk away. He was in this now, and whatever lay ahead, he would face it by her side. The air around Alex seemed to vibrate with energy as he stood before Lyra, the weight of her words pressing down on him like an invisible force. Her presence was undeniable, both calming and overwhelming at once. Like a powerful current he couldn't escape. Every step she took was calculated, each movement precise and graceful, as if she was always in control of everything around her. Lyra's gaze didn't waver from his. Her eyes locked on his with an intensity that made it difficult for Alex to breathe. There was a quiet power in the way she stood, like a predator watching its prey, though he didn't feel fear. Instead, he felt a strange connection, an invisible thread tugging him toward her. He had never felt anything like this before, not with anyone else, human or alien. It was as if his very soul was being drawn to hers, unwilling to fight the pull. "Do you know what it's like to truly see someone?" Lyra asked suddenly, her voice soft yet laced with meaning. Her words weren't just a question, they were a challenge. She stepped closer again, this time almost too close, her presence consuming him. Alex could feel her breath on his skin, warm and strangely comforting. "I don't think I do," he replied, his voice hoarse. Unsure of where the conversation was headed, but unwilling to break the silence, Lyra tilted her head, studying him with a mix of curiosity and something else, something deeper. It was as if she was peeling back the layers of his very being. reading him in a way no one had before. Her eyes narrowed slightly, and for a brief moment, Alex felt vulnerable, exposed. "Humans are so good at hiding," she said, her voice carrying an edge of sadness. "You hide behind your emotions, your thoughts, but you can't hide from me. Not anymore." Her words were haunting, each one sinking deeper into him like an anchor, pulling him into her world. He had never understood the depth of her words, the gravity of what she was trying to convey. She wasn't just talking about the physical, she was speaking of something far more complex, far more intimate. Alex took a step back, trying to regain control over his racing thoughts. But no matter how much he wanted to pull away, something kept him tethered to her, rooted in place. It was like an unspoken bond that neither of them could break. "You don't belong here," Lyra continued, her voice now barely a whisper, almost to herself. "None of you do. You think you can come to our worlds, take what you want, and leave without consequences. But there are always consequences, always." The gravity of her words settled in his chest like a weight. Was she talking about the humans who had come before him? He remembered the story's missions sent to explore new planets, to make contact, to conquer. But what if Lyra was right? What if the cost of all of this was something far worse than they could have ever imagined? Alex's mind raced, but before he could respond, Lyra raised a hand, signaling for him to be quiet. She didn't need him to speak. She already knew what he was thinking, what he feared. "You can't undo what's been done," she said, her voice steady but carrying an undeniable weight. "But you can choose how it ends. You can choose to fight, or you can choose to leave." The words hung in the air, each one a promise and a threat, both at once. Alex had never felt so uncertain, so torn. The mission had started with clear orders: complete the task and return home. But now, standing before Lyra, his purpose felt less clear than ever. There was a new mission forming inside him, something bigger than just orders. Her eyes softened for the first time, but there was still a flicker of something dangerous in their depths, something he couldn't quite understand. "I am offering you a choice," she said, "but it will not be easy, and it will not be painless." The pull between them deepened, and Alex felt the weight of the decision settling heavily on his shoulders. He couldn't ignore it anymore. He couldn't walk away. No matter what happened next, Alex knew this was the moment that would define everything. His future, Lyra's future, the fate of worlds. And he wasn't sure if he was ready, but he was certain of one thing: he wouldn't face it alone. Not anymore. The jungle was quiet again, save for the distant hum of the wind and the occasional rustle of leaves. But for Alex, the silence felt heavier than it had before. Lyra's presence was undeniable, still lingering in the air like the scent of something both beautiful and dangerous. She stood there, only a few feet away, watching him with an intensity that made his heart race. He had been given a choice that felt far from simple. Fight or leave. He was here to complete a mission, but the stakes had shifted. Now, it wasn't just about following orders, it was about something far greater. Alex's mind swirled with the weight of her words. He knew he couldn't simply walk away. Whatever the consequences, he had to face them. The bond between him and Lyra, however inexplicable, had begun to form an unbreakable thread. He wasn't sure how or why, but he felt it deeply. And for the first time since landing on this strange planet, he realized that leaving wasn't an option. Lyra stepped forward, her movements so fluid and effortless, it was as if she were gliding rather than walking. She seemed almost untouchable, her silver skin glowing faintly in the dim light that filtered through the jungle canopy. There was a power in her, a quiet strength that Alex couldn't ignore. But there was something else now, something he hadn't seen before: vulnerability. Her gaze softened, though the intensity was still there. "Just beneath the surface, you've made your choice," she said quietly, almost as though to herself. "And now you will face the consequences." "We all do." Her words hung in the air, heavy with meaning, and Alex wasn't sure if they were a warning or a promise. The moment felt too surreal, too overwhelming. The jungle, the alien princess, the mission, it was all blurring together into something he couldn't fully comprehend. He had expected something different when he first arrived, a simple task, a straightforward mission. But this was something else entirely. As Lyra's eyes met his once again, Alex felt the pull inside him. stronger now than ever before. He didn't know what it was, this connection that seemed to defy reason, but it was there, and it wasn't just physical. There was something deeper, something that went beyond simple attraction or curiosity. He was being drawn into her world, and it scared him as much as it excited him. "What is it that you truly want, human?" she asked, her voice low and almost soothing, but with an edge of steel beneath it. "What are you willing to risk for the sake of your people?" The question caught him off guard. He had never thought of it like that. His mission was supposed to be about his people, his world, but now it felt like it was about something more. It felt like it was about her. "I don't know," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know what I want anymore." Lyra's lips curled into a small, knowing smile. "That's the beginning of understanding," she said softly. Her words seemed to sink into him, making him feel as though he were seeing the world through her eyes, even for just a moment. Alex took a deep breath, trying to shake off the confusion that clouded his thoughts. He had made his choice. He had already taken the first step toward something he couldn't turn back from. There was no turning back now, no retreating into the safety of what he knew. This was at the point of no return. Lyra moved closer, her presence overwhelming him with every step. The air around them seemed to hum with energy, as though the very ground beneath them was alive. She reached out, her hand brushing against his arm, her touch sending a shiver down his spine. There was no turning back, not now, not ever again. "You will learn," she said softly, "that there are things more powerful than even the strongest forces in the universe. And that power is what binds us all." The weight of her words settled deep within him, and as the jungle enveloped them once more, Alex knew that his life, everything he had known, would never be the same again. He had chosen to stay. Now he would face whatever came next, with Lyra by his side, or perhaps in spite of her. And whatever that power was, whatever it meant for their future, Alex was ready to face it. He had no other choice. The world around Alex felt distorted now, as if everything had shifted into a different realm. Lyra's presence was no longer just a physical thing. It was something that seemed to seep into every part of him, blending with his thoughts and emotions. He had crossed a line. There was no going back from this moment, no way to retreat into the safety of his old life. The alien princess, once an enigma, was now someone he couldn't escape even if he wanted to. The air was thick with tension as they moved through the jungle together. The lush greenery around them was both beautiful and menacing, casting long shadows across their path. Alex couldn't shake the feeling that something was waiting for them, lurking just beyond the edge of their vision. The deeper they went, the more oppressive the silence became, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves or the distant cry of an unknown creature. The jungle felt alive, watching, listening. Lyra walked ahead of him, her movements graceful and confident. She seemed unfazed by the shadows, the unknown dangers that surrounded them. She wasn't afraid. For the first time since meeting her, Alex realized that Lyra was not just an alien, she was a force of nature, a being whose power and intelligence were beyond anything he could fully grasp. Her presence commanded respect, even fear. And yet, beneath the strength, there was a vulnerability that kept him drawn to her. "You're wondering what happens next, aren't you?" Lyra's voice cut through the stillness, calm but with a sharp edge. She turned to look at him, her piercing eyes catching the fading light of the jungle. "You're not sure if you can trust me, or if you should. But it's too late for doubt, human. You've already chosen." Her words struck him harder than he expected. He had chosen, he had made the decision to stay, to follow her into the unknown. But what was the cost? What would it mean for him, for humanity, to be tangled in the web of Lyra's world? "I don't know what I'm walking into," Alex admitted, his voice low. The uncertainty gnawed at him, but he knew deep down that it didn't matter anymore. There was no turning back. "But I know I can't leave." "Not now." Lyra nodded, as if she had already known the answer. Her gaze softened, and for the briefest moment, Alex saw something in her eyes that he hadn't noticed before. It wasn't just power. It was longing. Longing for something she hadn't had in years. Something she had been forced to hide, even from herself. "There's much you don't understand, Alex," Lyra said, her voice quieter now, almost as if she were speaking more to herself than to him. "Much that I can't explain." But there are forces in this universe that no one can control. Not even me. And you." She paused, looking over her shoulder at him. "You are now part of that, whether you want it or not." The weight of her words hung in the air like a storm waiting to break. Alex felt a chill crawl up his spine. He was part of something far bigger than himself. Something he hadn't signed up for. Something he couldn't comprehend. But he was here now. "Then show me," Alex said, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him. "Show me what you're talking about. I'm ready to see it." Lyra didn't respond at first, but her lips curled into a small, knowing smile. "You'll learn soon enough." With that, she began to walk again, leading him deeper into the heart of the jungle, where shadows danced and the unknown stretched out like an uncharted ocean. The air was thick with the promise of something more, something powerful and terrifying. Alex followed, unable to resist the pull. In the distance, he saw the faintest glow, a beacon of light. Lyra stopped, and Alex followed her gaze. The light grew brighter as they approached, a shimmering source of energy that seemed to pulse with life. It was unlike anything Alex had ever seen, like a living being made of light and energy, a force beyond human comprehension. "This is where it all begins," Lyra whispered. "This is where you'll truly understand what we are." Alex took a step forward, his heart pounding in his chest. The light grew closer, more intense, and as they stood before it, he realized the truth, his life, the mission, everything had led him to this moment. And now, there was no turning back. The light before them pulsed with a strange rhythm, its glow casting shadows that danced across the jungle floor like living things. Alex could feel the energy in the air, thick and charged, wrapping around him, pulling him into something he didn't fully understand. This wasn't just a source of light. It was something much deeper, a force that seemed to breathe, to live, to exist beyond the boundaries of what he had known. Lyra stood beside him, her expression unreadable, though her eyes never left the shimmering light. She seemed at ease, as though this moment was something familiar, something she had been waiting for. Alex, on the other hand, felt like an intruder, a mere mortal standing at the edge of something far greater than him. The pull between them, the connection, was now undeniable. He wasn't just here to observe. He was a part of this, whether he liked it or not. "This is where the boundaries blur," Lyra said quietly, her voice distant as if lost in thought. "Where worlds collide, where the truth of everything we are is revealed. You asked me about power, Alex. This is it. This is what binds everything together." Alex took a deep breath, the weight of her words settling heavily in his chest. He didn't know what she meant, not fully, but he could feel it. He could feel the power, the tension, thrumming in the air, as though the very fabric of reality was stretching, ready to tear open and reveal something unimaginable. He looked at her, needing answers, needing to understand what he had stumbled into. "Is this what you wanted me to see?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. He didn't even know if he was speaking to Lyra or to the light itself. It felt like both were watching him, waiting for something, a choice perhaps, or a revelation. Lyra nodded, but her eyes were distant, lost in the glow of the pulsating light. "This is the heart of it, the place where we, the descendants of this world, connect with everything, the energy of the universe itself." She paused, and for the first time, there was a flicker of vulnerability in her gaze. "And now you are part of it." The weight of her words pressed down on Alex. He had chosen this path. He had come here thinking he was just a soldier, a human on a mission. But now, standing in front of the source of all this power, he realized how small he had truly been, how little he had understood about the forces at play. "What does this mean for me?" he asked, his voice trembling, unsure of what he was even asking. "What happens now?" Lyra turned to him, her eyes sharp, focused, as if she had been waiting for this question. "It means you can no longer go back to who you were. You're part of something bigger now. Your fate, your purpose, everything you thought you knew is now intertwined with this. With me, with this world." Alex's heart skipped a beat. Her words were final, unyielding. There was no escape from this, no simple return to the life he had left behind. He was part of this now, part of something ancient, something far more complex than he could ever imagine. But was he ready for it? The light flickered again, and for a moment, Alex saw flashes of images, alien landscapes. vast galaxies, and strange, beautiful beings. He could feel the weight of history, of everything that had come before him, pressing down on him. He wasn't just a soldier. He was a part of this unfolding story, whether he was ready or not. What happens next is up to you, Alex. Lyra's voice was firm now, steady, but there was a softness in it, a quiet understanding. But remember, not all choices are easy, and not all paths lead to the same end. The light before them began to grow brighter, its intensity increasing, pulling Alex in. His heart raced as he felt the world around him shift, the boundaries between the unknown and the familiar starting to blur. This was the moment that would change everything for him, for Lyra, and for the worlds they were both connected to. With a final glance at Lyra, Alex stepped forward toward the light, toward the future that awaited him. He didn't know what lay ahead, but one thing was certain. This was no longer just a mission. This was a journey into the unknown, and he was ready to face it.